God may be warning you about a relationship, and the warning may not look like a dramatic sign from heaven. Sometimes, the warning is much quieter. It is the constant lack of peace, the repeated dishonesty, the way your boundaries keep getting ignored, the way you keep making excuses for behavior you know is wrong, or that uncomfortable feeling deep inside that keeps telling you something isn't right. And the hardest part? You may be so emotionally attached to the person that you don't want to hear the warning. You want the relationship to work so badly that you start praying for God to change the situation instead of asking Him to show you the truth. So stay with me until the end, because we're going to talk about some signs you should never casually dismiss when you're dating someone. And before we continue, like this video, share it with someone who may need this message, and subscribe to Covenant Talks. Your share could help someone recognize a relationship they have been struggling to see clearly. Let's get into it. Sometimes God may not remove someone from your life immediately. Sometimes He gives you wisdom to recognize who they are, and that requires you to pay attention. You cannot call every difficult moment a warning from God. Relationships have disagreements. People make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. But there is a difference between normal relationship difficulties and repeated patterns that continually destroy your peace, values, and dignity. So start by looking at the fruit. What is this relationship consistently producing? Are you becoming more peaceful, more honest, more responsible, more confident? Or are you becoming anxious, secretive, insecure, isolated, and constantly confused? Because the relationship may be telling you something that your emotions don't want to hear. There is an old piece of wisdom that says you recognize a tree by its fruit. In simple terms, don't judge a relationship only by how beautiful it looks at the beginning. Look at what it consistently produces. Someone can be charming. They can pray with you. They can talk about marriage. They can tell you that you're the answer to their prayers. But what happens when they don't get what they want? What happens when you say no? What happens when you disagree? What happens when they are angry? That's when character starts speaking. If they constantly insult you during disagreements, ignore your boundaries, manipulate you, or make you feel afraid to express yourself, don't dismiss those patterns simply because they can also be sweet. A person can have good moments and still have an unhealthy pattern. And sometimes, the warning is not that the person is completely evil. It's that they are simply not healthy for you. That's an important distinction. You don't have to hate someone to recognize that you should not build a future with them. Another warning sign is when you constantly have to compromise your values to keep the relationship alive. Maybe you had boundaries before you met them. You knew what you believed. You knew what you would and wouldn't accept. But little by little, those standards began disappearing. You started doing things you once promised yourself you would never do. You started hiding parts of your life from your family. You stopped spending time with good friends because your partner didn't like them. You ignored your convictions because you were afraid of losing the relationship. And every time your conscience speaks, you tell yourself, it's not that serious. Everybody makes mistakes. We love each other. We'll fix it later. But ask yourself something. Why are you constantly having to betray your own values to keep this relationship alive? Love should require growth, but it should not require you to abandon your convictions. If keeping someone means constantly becoming someone you don't recognize, that relationship deserves serious examination. And here's another one. You keep asking God for confirmation while ignoring the evidence already in front of you. You pray, God, if they're the right person, give me a sign. Then they lie to you. You pray again. They disrespect your boundaries. You pray again. They repeatedly break promises. You pray again. And instead of accepting what you're seeing, you keep waiting for some dramatic miracle to tell you what their behavior has already shown you. Sometimes, wisdom is the answer. You don't need lightning from the sky to recognize dishonesty. You don't need a dream to know that manipulation is unhealthy. You don't need a supernatural sign to understand that repeated disrespect is a serious problem. Prayer is not supposed to replace discernment. It should strengthen it. Sometimes you're asking God for a sign because you already know the answer, but you don't like the answer. And that's painful, because sometimes what you want from God is permission to stay. But what you need is courage to walk away. Another warning is when everyone who genuinely cares about you is concerned. Not every opinion from family or friends is automatically correct. People can misunderstand relationships. People can be judgmental. But if several mature, trustworthy people independently notice the same troubling patterns, don't immediately dismiss them because you're in love. Ask yourself why they're concerned. What are they seeing? What have you stopped seeing because you're emotionally attached? Sometimes people outside the relationship can see clearly what you cannot see because you're standing in the middle of it. And here's something else. Pay attention to what happens when you establish a boundary. You say, I don't want to move this fast. I need time. I don't want to have sex. Please don't speak to me that way. I need to maintain my friendships. I don't feel comfortable with this. A healthy person may disagree. They may feel disappointed, but they should still respect your right to make decisions about your own life. Someone who responds with threats, guilt, manipulation, pressure, or anger is showing you something. If saying no makes someone treat you differently, pay attention. Because marriage does not make controlling behavior disappear. It often gives it more room to grow. Another warning is constant confusion. You never know where you stand. One day they talk about marriage. The next day they aren't sure about the relationship. One day they are affectionate. The next day they disappear. When you pull away, they come running back. When you become emotionally available again, they become distant, and you spend your days trying to decode their behavior. Do they still love me? Did I do something wrong? Why are they acting differently? Should I text them? Should I wait? Maybe they're just busy. A healthy relationship doesn't require you to constantly solve a mystery just to know whether you matter. Peace doesn't mean everything is perfect, but constant confusion should not become your normal. Sometimes you are not struggling to understand the relationship. The relationship is showing you that it is unstable. And then there's the warning many people don't want to hear. You are becoming obsessed with changing them. You keep thinking, if I love them enough, they'll change. If I pray enough, they'll change. If I become a better partner, they'll change. If we get married, they'll change. But you cannot make another adult choose transformation. You can encourage someone. You can pray for someone. You can support someone. But they have to choose change for themselves. Don't marry someone because of who you believe they could become. Pay attention to who they consistently choose to be now. Because potential can inspire hope, but character builds a marriage. And maybe the biggest warning is what the relationship is doing to your relationship with yourself. Are you losing your confidence? Are you constantly questioning your worth? Are you becoming jealous and controlling? Are you checking phones and tracking behavior? Are you isolating yourself? Are you constantly apologizing? Are you afraid to speak? Are you exhausted from trying to keep the peace? Then stop and ask, what is this relationship producing in me? Because the right relationship should not require you to destroy yourself just to keep it alive. Sometimes, God may be warning you through the very discomfort you're trying so hard to silence. Not every uncomfortable feeling is a divine warning, but repeated patterns deserve attention. So don't panic. Don't make a major decision based on one bad day. Slow down. Observe. Pray. Seek wise counsel. Look at the patterns and be honest about what you're seeing. If there is abuse, threats, coercion, stalking, or fear for your physical safety, don't handle that situation alone. Reach out to trusted people and appropriate professional or local support and prioritize your safety. And remember this, you don't have to prove that someone is a terrible person before deciding they are not the right person for you. Sometimes the relationship simply isn't producing the kind of life you should be building. Maybe the question isn't, can I make this relationship work? Maybe the better question is this relationship helping me become the person I am supposed to become? That's a completely different question, Because sometimes God doesn't answer your prayer by giving you the relationship you wanted. Sometimes the answer is revealing why you shouldn't have it. And that can hurt. But protection doesn't always feel like protection at first. Sometimes it feels like disappointment. Sometimes it feels like losing someone. Sometimes it feels like starting over. But losing a relationship is not always losing your future. Sometimes letting go of the wrong relationship is how you make room for a healthier one. So before you ignore that warning one more time, stop. Look at the fruit. Look at the patterns. Look at your peace. Look at your values. Look at how they respond to boundaries. Look at whether their words match their actions. And ask yourself honestly, if nothing about this person changed, would I still want to build my entire future with them? Don't answer based on potential. Answer based on reality. If this message helped you, like this video, share it with someone who may need to hear it, and subscribe to Covenant Talks. Your support helps us reach more people who are trying to make wiser decisions about love, dating, marriage, and their future. And comment below, have you ever ignored a warning about a relationship because you were too emotionally attached to let go? I'll see you in the next Covenant Talks.